NFL Week 11 Power Rankings. Yes, we're in the back half of the season. Things are shaking out. Teams that I thought would be better have question marks. Teams that I didn't think would be as good as quick are starting to show signs of being a serious contender. Before we get rolling with the top 10, and I'm actually only doing 9 teams this week, I'm going to show you the respect screen, which this week I'm calling the tied for 10th team. Look, some teams here have beaten other teams. At this point in the NFL season, there have been so many combinations of games that, a team in this list could have beaten a team in the top 10. 2 teams on this list might have played and somebody beat somebody else. It is just what it is at this point. So I'm going to say these teams are tied for 10th right now. And I'm going to show you the first one I'm going to talk about right now, the Baltimore Ravens, everybody. Look, I've been saying this since they were on their 14-2 run last season. And at this point, other people are starting to latch onto it, and I've been saying it week in and week out. Lamar Jackson, I like his talent. Is the offense predictable? Is it Greg Roman's problem? Is it the coaching? Is it Harbaugh's problem? I don't know. I'm not particularly comfortable with these things being talked about by the players and the press, but let me say this. It's pretty obvious what the Ravens want to do. They want to run the ball up the middle with physicality. They want to play great defense and special teams, and they want to suck those linebackers up so that Lamar Jackson can fit the ball into in routes and seam routes for the tight end and for these wide receivers. The problem is they have not shown the ability to go over the top of the defense. So as we are making a Super Bowl run, we know, just like last season and just really like the season before, the Ravens are a play from ahead team. They have a fatal flaw, and that's the deep passing game. What I find interesting is that Josh Allen this season had the ascension at quarterback and throwing the ball downfield and completing passes down there with higher efficiency. He had that ascension that I thought Lamar Jackson would have. Lamar Jackson just hasn't gotten there. So I think the criticism is warranted. I think it's for real. Tied for 10th for me this week from Baltimore. Big game against Tennessee. If they win that, they're right back in the top 10, but we know Tennessee bounced them in the playoffs last year. I'm going to talk about the Cleveland Browns now. They are also 6-3. All these teams in this list, by the way, are 6-3. The Cleveland Browns, I like them. I like that Nick Chubb came back. My problem is that they seem to integrate in key situations Kareem Hunt more. Nick Chubb is one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in the league. He can catch the ball, everybody. He's a good running back. Every time he touches the ball, he gets 5.5 yards his entire career. He is awesome. But for some reason, I guess from a skill set point of view, Stefanski likes what Kareem Hunt offers. I think that makes the situation more murky. I think Chubb should be getting two-thirds of the snaps no matter what. I think it's weird that in their 4-minute offense, they take Chubb off the field and put Kareem Hunt in. I think that's to the detriment of the Cleveland Browns. If the Cleveland Browns committed to getting Nick Chubb 25 carries a game, no matter what, I would like them more. I'll be honest with you. If John Gruden or if Arthur Smith in Tennessee, if these guys were calling the game, Chubb would be getting that volume that he should be getting. And I like that, and that's how teams win later in the season. Additionally, for Cleveland, losing Odell Beckham, that takes their big down-the-field threat out of the game. Even in play action, I don't think that Jarvis Landry or Hodge or Higgins or take your pick at wide receiver are as good and bring as much to the table as Odell Beckham is. I think that injury is going to be tough as Cleveland gets back into its division schedule. They have to deal with Baltimore's defense, and Pittsburgh's defense is improved. I think he can chalk up probably 2 more losses to those 2 teams specifically. They have to close out the season. Now, they have reasonable wins on their schedule as well left, but I'm worried about that passing attack. The Los Angeles Rams beating the Seattle Seahawks this week. I know Rams fans, you're going to say, hey, where's the respect for my team? I do like the Rams, but my problem is that they have to deal with the NFC West. I think Arizona is slightly ahead of them. The Seattle Seahawks are also on this screen I'm going to talk about in just a bit. The Rams defense, I'm really impressed. I want to see a little bit more from the Rams running game. It seemed to have sputtered in recent games against superior competition, but they are still 6-3. I did pick them before the season to be in the playoffs. I'm not moving off of that pick right now. The question for me is, do they win the division? Do they finish second? Do they finish third? I don't know. I still think the NFC West is going to give us three playoff teams, but hey, if they have to bludgeon each other at the end of the year, everybody at this point has to beat San Francisco to close the season and maybe trade losses, in their round robin play. The Las Vegas Raiders, I just talked about them. They commit to the run. Derek Carr is playing his best football of his career. I have questions about wide receiver, but they do seem to get enough out of their wide receiver group when they need him. They still have Darren Waller. They can hit you in all 3 layers of the field. So I like their offense. The big question for me is the defense. They got to show up. I do still still think the Raiders sneak in. I think they'll grab the 7th seed in the AFC. They are tied for 10th for me this week in the power rankings. The Seattle Seahawks, my opinion on the Seahawks offense, and I still think Russell Wilson is putting it up an MVP season, but Kyler Murray is closing that gap with the way they're playing. Seattle and Arizona, depending on when you pick up, they play on Thursday Night Football. So if you're picking up this up later in the week, they've already played. We'll see what happens. I tend to think Seattle will do what they need to do and win that game. I think Seattle's offense is missing the physical running of Chris Carson. For me, it's not a surprise that they've lost games since Carson has been out. When they get him back, I think they'll start winning games again. But again, like the Raiders, my question is the defense. I do think the Seattle Seahawks offense is at a little bit of a higher caliber when everybody's healthy than the Raiders, so I would say they're better. Remember, everybody, I picked the Seattle Seahawks to make it to the Super Bowl for the NFC. I'm not walking that back, but what I am doing is I'm acknowledging the defense is an issue. They're going to just have to figure out how to plug holes in the dam there. But their offense, when it is at full strength, is probably, well, I would say definitely the best offense in the NFC with respect to a couple of the other teams that we'll talk about a little bit later. The Tennessee Titans, I like their offense. I like their commitment to the run. I do like, Ryan Tannehill's efficiency. I think he's good. The Tennessee Titans offense, I don't say it's sputtering. It hasn't been scoring as much as it was early in the year. The Tennessee Titans defense does seem to be getting a little bit better. There's a big matchup this week against Baltimore. The winner of that game will make it into the top 10 next week, guaranteed. So I like all these teams, all tied for 10th to me. That's a nice sneaky way for me to get around leaving some of these teams off the list entirely. Now let's get to the top 10, but actually I'm just talking about the 9 because I just talked about the 10. The Miami Dolphins, 6-3. They're doing some really great things defensively. Now we're kind of prisoners to the moment when it comes to the first quarter of the season. Last year, the Miami Dolphins started off, I think, 0-5, but they were playing hard. I loved them. I bet on them in the second half of last season quite a bit because of how hard they were playing, and they were able to get better as they closed out the season. I think they went something like 500 football or something like that in the last 8 games. They're very, very good, the Miami Dolphins. This season, they started 0-2 again. They lost to the Patriots. They lost to the Bills, and since then, they've been 6-1. It's not a fluke. If you haven't watched the Dolphins, you need to get in on them because the Dolphins' defense is playing elite football. Their defense looks a lot like what we think the Pittsburgh Steelers' defense looks like when we're thinking about NFL fans. That's not a fluke. They've been doing it week in and week out, making game-changing plays. Tua Tagovailoa, I love his leadership. My big question for Miami is, as the weather gets bad, can they run and play physical football? They haven't shown the ability to run between the tackles. And I don't know that Tua this season is good enough to get it done, but I do think the Miami Dolphins will surprise people. I think they will grab, one of those 3 wild cards that we're going to get this year. Number 8 on my list, the Green Bay Packers. Look, they're 7-2. They're the lowest ranked 2-loss team. But the Green Bay Packers, they started the season on fire in the first quarter. I think they started 4-0 or 5-0. And then the second quarter of the season, they just haven't been looking as strong. The defense doesn't seem to be clicking on all cylinders. The offense, they're not getting the efficiency in the run game. Some of that you can contribute to the teams they've been playing in the second quarter of the season. They just haven't been playing as well as they did to begin the year. I'm a little bit worried they're going on the wrong direction. I think they're trending down. That doesn't mean they can't get it right, but that's why they are ranked the lowest of all the 2-loss teams. Number 7 on my list, the Buffalo Bills. They had a heartbreaking loss to the Arizona Cardinals. That was the most amazing Hail Mary I have ever seen. If that ball was 1 inch in any direction, that ball is incomplete. Buffalo defense, that is about as well as you can. Yeah, you can make the argument that maybe the defender should have pushed Kyler Murray up the field. But look, it is what it is. You got to give credit to Arizona. Part of that, look, you don't take anything away from the skill of DeAndre Hopkins and the skill of a Kyler Murray, but to put that ball where it was, to drop it in a bucket kind of on the move to your left, to drop that in a bucket, reset your feet, that's a 1 in 1,000 throw, if not worse odds. It could have been 1 in a 10,000 throw. It was just incredible. But the Buffalo Bills, and what I really loved about this loss is Josh Allen, we forget about this, drove the team down the field, had an amazing touchdown throw, an amazing catch from Stephon Diggs on Patrick Peterson. That should have been the game winner if it weren't for that amazing Hail Mary. The Buffalo Bills showed a lot of character, and that's what I've been looking to see from the Bills. Can they close the gap in crunch time in the playoffs? If you're down 4, you need that touchdown. Can you get it in the last 2 minutes? Buffalo showed it against a very good Arizona Cardinals team. It just didn't work out in their favor. But that loss showed me a lot more about the Buffalo Bills than their, in my opinion, underwhelming victory against the New York Jets a couple weeks ago where they kicked nothing but field goals. I like the Buffalo Bills. I've been on them all season. Josh Allen, you certainly should be in the MVP discussion as well. Number 6, the Arizona Cardinals. Look, you have to rank the Arizona Cardinals ahead of the Buffalo Bills just based on what happened. But what I really like about the Cardinals is their defense is much better than I thought they would be this season. I thought that they were still about a year away. I picked them to finish, I think, 9-7, but 4th in the NFC West. We know at this point their floor is probably 3rd. But honestly, I think they're playing the best football in the NFC West, and that is a jam-packed division of talent. But we're going to see, some maturity, and the closing quarter of their season is really tough. They're going to have to deal with the Seahawks. They're going to have this week. They're going to have to deal with the Rams again. They have some tough games. It wouldn't shock me if they end up kind of stumbling, but at the same point, they're getting confidence and they're a good enough team to make the playoffs. So we're going to see where they are mentally. We're going to see if they can close out the season. I think they'll do it. I have faith in them. So number 6. Number 5 for me, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They did end up shredding the Carolina Panthers. The game, it was funny because the game seemed close to me, and then I look at the end and they ended up doubling up the score on the Carolina Panthers. Look, when you're looking towards the playoffs, you have to be able to run the ball. Tampa can do that. They have Fournette and Ronald Jones, and Ronald Jones is playing better than I gave him credit for earlier in the year. They can run the ball. You have to be able to pass the ball. You have to be able to get key third down conversions when it's like 3rd and long. Brady to Gronk in double coverage, that's going to be there. But they also have Godwin. They also have Antonio Brown. They also have Mike Evans in the red zone, which I think he's a red zone specialist at this point, just basically what we're seeing this year so far. They have pieces everywhere offensively. Their offensive line is good. Then you look defensively. Can they stop the run? Yes, they can. They can force teams to pass, and they have enough ball hawks in the secondary to make a run. Tampa Bay is a legitimate Super Bowl threat, number 5 on my list. Number 4, the Indianapolis Colts. People are like, why do you have Indianapolis in front of Tampa Bay? I'll tell you why. To begin the year, again, we get prisoners to the moment. To begin the year, I picked Indianapolis to win the division. I did. And then they lost to Jacksonville. I'm like, what? They lost to Jacksonville. I watched that game. Indianapolis outplayed Jacksonville, and they still managed to lose that game. I'm like, what is going on? Phillip Rivers, some key interceptions he threw, which has plagued him last year in Los Angeles. And then the team had some turnovers on downs. Anyway, since then they've been 6-2, right? But they've had some odd losses lately. They've been getting better and better. They had some defensive players. I think in that Browns loss, they lost Leonard. They're going to get Justin Houston back. This defense I was talking about, Miami, it's elite. I know a fantasy football community, we want to think about the offense and like how explosive the offense is, but this defense is elite. You got to give that credit. They can run the ball, but here's the deal. In the last probably 3 to 4 games, Phillip Rivers, new offensive system. I know he's had experience with Frank Reich before, but there's still a little bit of an acclimation period. Lately, Phillip Rivers has been throwing the ball more. Indianapolis has been running the ball less. They've been efficient with their passing. Michael Pittman Jr. coming back looks like a star in the making. Nobody's talking about him, but I am. I do believe that he's going to be a monster as we close out the season. Naheem Hines has been more involved. I like the trio of tight ends when all of them are healthy. T.Y. Hilton now being the second receiver makes that offense a lot more interesting. Zach Pascal is very consistent. Again, we're not talking about the Colts. Nobody is, but they are a threat. They are playing better, and their defense, which is already elite, is going to get better with players coming back and getting healthy. Number 3, another team kind of facing some injury issues, the New Orleans Saints at 7-2. Look, again, prisoners to the moment. They had that Monday Night Football loss against the Vegas Raiders, and we were thinking, that wasn't a good loss. But in retrospect, was it a bad loss? The Raiders have wins against the Kansas City Chiefs and New Orleans Saints. Very good. The Raiders are 6-3. The New Orleans Saints were missing Michael Thomas for the first game. There was an adjustment period. Since then, because they had that win in week 1, and then they've been 5-2 since then without Michael Thomas for the most part. Now they're going to be missing Drew Brees because of rib injury, so we're probably going to see New Orleans drop off this list. But when you think about the playoff run, when you think about the Super Bowl, their defense, when they get up for games, they can stop people. I was mentioning the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a Super Bowl threat. New Orleans Saints give the Tampa Bay Buccaneers matchup issues. And it's a lot about matchup when we get in the playoffs. So Tampa Bay, if they have a clean slate, they don't have to do with New Orleans, they could very well make it to the Super Bowl. If they play New Orleans at some point, they could very well lose to New Orleans. It's, these division matchups, anything happens, anything can go. The New Orleans Saints, I like what they are. They're probably going to drop as Drew Brees leaves, but if Jameis Winston can do what Teddy Bridgewater did last year when Brees was out, then they're going to stay at the top of this list. So I like the Saints right now. They were my co-favorites in the NFC along with Seattle. I thought they would lose in the NFC Championship game, but I thought the Saints would make a run, and here they are, 7-2. Go figure. Number 2 on my list, the Kansas City Chiefs. 8-1 coming off the bye week. They play the Raiders. If they can beat the Raiders, they have a very valid argument to be considered for the number 1 team. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, 9-0 at this point. They're undefeated. Their defense is still playing better. I like the Kansas City Chiefs, by the way, because their defense is playing better. Both of these teams, to me, have the highest ceilings. Kansas City, Pittsburgh, they can both run when they need to, but they both prefer to pass, and the defense can force turnovers and make plays. Pittsburgh's defense, I think, does edge out the Kansas City Chiefs defense. The Kansas City Chiefs defense, when they're operating at full cylinder, I believe they slightly edge out the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. However, the Pittsburgh Steelers have been doing it on the field. The Kansas City Chiefs, although they are an 8-1, we haven't seen them be as elite as they were in their Super Bowl season last year. But remember, last year, I think they were 6-4. Before they went on their run. Kansas City has their eyes on the Super Bowl. That's what it's about for them. They're still 8-1. Let's see if they can lock up the number 2 seed. I do believe Pittsburgh versus Kansas City, assuming health, assuming everything, remaining okay in terms of player health and all that stuff, will be our AFC Championship matchup. And what a matchup they would be. To me, they are slightly above everybody else. The NFC is wide open. It's going to be a fun run to the Super Bowl. I can't wait to see the back half of this season.